Everybody is talking about AI, but oftentimes the conversations that we're having stay really abstract. So today, we're getting into the nitty gritty. You'll hear from state government affairs pros using AI in their real work right now, covering nearly 50 states with a team of two. So what is pulling its weight? Where have they hit walls? What can they tell everyone who's kind of still on the fence about things? And our goal for today is simple. I want you to leave with at least one thing you can try this week. So with that, I'd love to introduce our speakers, Justan Rice, Director of State Government Affairs at Libertas Institute, and Manny Heer, Senior Manager of State and Local Government Relations at Phillips. Justan, I'll toss it over to you to do some quick intros.
Thanks so much, Patrick, and thank you, Manny, for joining me today to tag team this. My name is Justan Rice. I am the Director of State Government Affairs for Libertas Institute. We are a small but mighty think tank based out of Utah. I actually work remotely, so my home state is Arizona, but since we're talking about where we are today, I happen to be at CSG South, so I've got the great city of Lexington, Kentucky right behind me, then on our way to Orlando, Florida, and then on our way to NCSL in Chicago. So if you happen to be on the conference circuit just like me, hit me up. I'm really excited to speak with you today about, again, small teams, big impact. As of yesterday, I was a team of two. As of this morning, I'm a team of one.
Oh, no.
I can tell you all about what it's going to look like for me moving forward as a single person team handling 50 states and a portfolio of about 5 high flying priorities right now. So super excited to share this with you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We'll be sure to get you all the coffee or whatever you need. And these events coming up. Manny, would you mind introducing yourself, everyone?
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. And Justan, wow, big lift coming for you. Hi, everyone. My name is Manny Heer. I'm with Phillips. We are a healthcare technology company. I am based in Sacramento, California. I am also remote, and I cover the Western 25 states. And my counterpart and my manager, Evan Hoffman, he covers the 25 Eastern states. So there are only two of us. At Phillips, we do have a pretty broad agenda in terms of our portfolio for maternal health, rural health, telehealth. There's AI policy, of course, and there's all kinds of other issue areas that we work on. So as you can imagine, about 2 to 3 years ago, we were tackling all of that just manually, as we all did for the longest time. Now, today, we're talking about AI, and I'll sort of go through some of the things, like how that has changed. So again, thank you, Patrick, for having me.
Totally. All right, let's hop right into it. So first, we'd love just to start at the very top, which is like, what does AI actually mean to you in your work? And how has it changed the way you operate on a day-to-day basis? Justan, I'll kick it over to you first.
Sure. Well, and I don't want to lose anyone out of the gate, but I will say this. When I have not been in my position for very long. I joined in November. And the interesting thing about the place that I work is that we are very tech forward for a very small group. So we actually receive a stipend every month that encourages us to be productive and utilize AI. So this was not part of my interview process. So I was a little surprised when I came on saying, like, we actually expect you to be very tech forward. That's not my background. So this is something that was brand new to me when I started out. So AI was something kind of going, I get it. I understand how people utilize it. But do I even have time to learn this? Especially when, like I said, we're a very small team of two. So one thing that I can certainly say is that AI has definitely become my good buddy. Based on the amount of work that we have, and for those that are working in policy, you would know, of course, the amount of work that we have, and again, working in 50 states, there's a lot going on. So I utilize a lot of different AI tools that we can certainly talk about later that help with my workflow. And my first impression in working with AI, and I think some people feel this way or are reticent to use AI because it feels like, am I cheating? Am I really doing my job, the job that they hired me to do, by utilizing all of these other tools to help me do my job? And so I think that's a really interesting perspective that I'm happy to talk about a little bit later on too. But what I have really found is once you kind of get over that and help understand how AI works and the different tools that are available to you, how to ensure that it's something that, like I said, it's not just a robot writer. It's something that can actually work in terms as your partner and can help with your workflow and help you do some of those things that otherwise a small team would never be able to do.
Totally. It's your good buddy. I love that. Manny, how about you?
Yeah, and Justin, similarly at Philips, right, we are encouraged to use AI. Matter of fact, we actually recently had an AI contest, not among our department, but a broader department, who can come up with the best tool of AI, what's the best use of AI. And I think I won one of those awards. I didn't win the big one, but I won one of them. But I'm pretty sure our tech folks won the big one. Anyhow, so for those who cover multiple states, for those who covers the entire country, I think that not only that you have your own states, but that you also belong to tons of trade association. You have contract lobbyists everywhere. The flow of data coming into your inbox is just massive, right? So I think that's kind of what AI has sort of eased up a little bit on your workflow, because you can summarize that. And I think that's the first step in AI. I think everyone understands that now it's easier to summarize. Before, there would be a 10-page bill. You would probably have to go through each definition, everything. I think now you can just easily able to just kind of plug that in and just say, like, quickly summarize that for me. And once you summarize it, I think you can kind of fact check it, whether or not this is a great summary or not. And then I think it gives you a time to like act upon some of the actual expert work that you're supposed to do, not the entire wasting 1 hour just reading it. And I think that's what has changed quite a bit now. Like I don't know what was the last time that I would read the entire bill before summarize. Now I summarize every bill. You do want to go back to your bill, right? Of course, through reference, but at the same time, I think it kind of gives you an out. Like if you were to spending 5 minutes just summarizing it, you still have the 55 minutes you were going to spend on otherwise anyways. And now you can use that for, reviewing it, figuring out what's the next step, who's your internal partners in this. So I think it has kind of changed the game in that sense.
Totally. You can spend a lot of time on other things that matter, a whole lot more versus
Right.
The definitions thing gets me a lot, because especially if you're doing things across how many different states, like the taxonomy that they use inside the bills is going to differ state to state. And it's taxing to have to like look at, okay, wait, what's that mean again? Okay. Oh, that's right. That's how Idaho does it, kind of a deal. So awesome. So as you're running a team, you're both running a team of two, or at one point two, covering nearly 50 states. So how do small teams like yours accomplish the big things? Like what are the workflows and things that make it possible to expand the capacity of a really lean team? Justin, I'll go to you first.
Sure. Let's see how I want to phrase this. I mean, I really think the two things that make it possible, like, first, we build it once and we reuse it everywhere. I think a model bill, testimony template, a one-pager, I write it for one state and adapt it for another state the same afternoon, instead of taking a week to kind of figure it out. And our partners on the ground, we don't have a lot of contract lobbyists, but we do work with other think tanks in other states. So we do share our policies. So those are our partners on the ground. So when I'm able to take something that, like I said, is prepackaged and sent to them, I know that with confidence that they're going to have the tools and the resources that they need in order to help us carry our campaign. I would say second, we're really ruthless about what we don't do. And I think this is really important. Every quarter, we pick a short list of priorities, and then we protect them with our lives. AI kind of works on both fronts in that way. It makes the reuse faster. And I think it clears the low value work. So all those things that the drudgery, if you will, that are kind of sitting on the side of your desk, kind of, I'll get to that later. Like filing is not my favorite. Not that that's a thing anymore. But it's something that kind of helps with that, like I said, that the minutia, if you will, some of those things that can be handed off. So research memos and rough drafts, those could eat all day. Now, again, with a smaller team, we can leverage AI to ensure that we're spending more of our hours doing the work that matters. Like what Manny said, what the work that the AI can't do, the work that we are hired to do, the important, those people connections. That's really how AI, I think, frees up that time and allows us to better prioritize how, like I said, with very limited time and very limited resources and human capital, even smaller now, what that looks like and how do we make sure that we get the work done.
Totally. I love that idea of what are the things that you can create once and then just plug into tools and say, change for blank, or, here's new for insert this. That's something we've been doing a ton on our team. It's like, okay, cool. We created the one pager template. Now we have the one pager template. Adapt for blank. That's awesome. Manny, how about you? What are some of the things that you've enabled your team to be able to do as a lean team?
Yeah, and I think one thing AI can't do and it won't do is, how do you understand the priority for your organization, right? I think that's the expert piece of you, that you have to come in and understand, hey, I have 25 states. Well, there's 5 states, there's, stuff is happening. Well, which one is going to be my priority? That's something you have to figure out. You've got to talk to your internal teams, you've got to talk to your trade association, your contract lobbyists and everything, and understand your business impact. And I think, but once you kind of understand that, because small teams can't do everything. We can't be in each state all at the same time. So once you have a priority, and I think that's kind of where what Justin said is, if you have that template model and you can plug that in and try to understand the impact. So I'll give you an example, kind of like a walkthrough. And I don't know how many of you all use Quorum, but the Quincy in Quorum, which is the AI assistant in it, it's one of the greatest tools because it's a built-in system. You can easily plug in about a bill. Hey, HB1 is happening in state of Colorado. What is the impact of that on my company, right? If your company it has a newsroom, whatever, you can just plug that into the link into it. It'll automatically pick up like what type of work that your company does and whether it's going to have an impact or not. Better yet, you want to take the summary from Quincy. Now let's go to ChatGPT. You plug that into the ChatGPT. And with ChatGPT, will start giving you citations. It will start doing all the research for you. All of that you'll probably do that in a matter of 10 minutes max, quite honestly. It doesn't take longer than that. I think that will start to show you sort of like the impact on your organization. You can start seeing clearly whether or not this is something that you need to prioritize over the issue number 2, which you will do the same thing. So I use ChatGPT quite a bit. I use Copilot, and I also use Quincy. I don't use Claude as much. I have used it, but I think each of them has separate functions. And like Justin said, once you have your model template, you can just start plugging that in. Of course, we have the whole confidentiality and all the agreements that you have with your organization. Don't plug things in without knowing that. But if this is some public information, you start plugging it in, you'll start seeing clear picture. And I think the greatest feature of these AI tools is the memory that it just contains. And eventually, once you come back to it, it'll remember what you did. And it'll start giving you that. And over time, you'll know. So that's kind of how I've kind of taken that approach going forward in terms of where I am going to have a priority.
Love that. So we talked a little bit about like what other tools y'all are using. So like Microsoft Copilot is one that I hear a lot because a lot of the teams that we work with are, Microsoft teams, ChatGPT, Quorum's Quincy. Manny, you talked about this a little bit, but how do these different tools show up in your work as like a mobile office to build profiles for legislators, conference contacts, all that kind of fun stuff? Justin, I'll send that one over to you.
You want to go first?
Oh, Manny, go ahead.
Okay. So like I said, I use Copilot quite a bit, and that's given by our organization. And ChatGPT, I had my personal account, but I also have a licensed product by Philips. And then, of course, Quincy, right? I think each of them have separate functions. I think Copilot is great if you're going to summarize the kind of the work that you're doing internally. Just for example, this morning I had my one-on-one with my manager, and I was trying to put together an agenda. Then I was like, oh, maybe I'm forgetting something. And I just literally asked, like, give me all the items that I've been working on for the last 2 weeks. And I did find a couple of different things that I didn't think of. So what it does is, I think because it's so linked with your, your Outlook, your calendar, I think it can just kind of pick up the items that may fall through the cracks. You can always just think about something. I can't find this email. Maybe just enter that into it. It just finds everything. And then at the same time, Microsoft Teams, for those who use that, I think it's an amazing function in there that now it sort of summarizes your meetings, it plays as a facilitator, and then you already have your notes. Gone are the old days where you were taking notes. Now you have a facilitator creating notes, action items, everything for you. Right after the meeting, you can pick that up and just go. So that's that's Copilot. And I think ChatGPT is mainly used for research. Its deep knowledge function, it's done a great job. If you're trying to really understand an issue, you just want to go to the deep level at the regulatory, legislative level, ask for citations. How has the other states done it? How has the federal government done it? I think that's where sort of ChatGPT comes in. And finally, Quorum, again, it's obviously got the Quincy, which it's a chat function, but it has other functions as well, right? Like you go to a conference, which Justin's at, you just meet with legislator X. Right after that, just go in your app, add an interaction. Well, we used to do it manually. Well, now you can just sort of type it in real quick. I just met with legislator X at this on this date, boom, and it just automatically logs it in for you. So I think each has different function. However, you can sort of kind of play with them, plug one information into another and just kind of get the product.
Totally. So Manny, can you talk me a little bit through like what your interaction logging? So first off, awesome that your team logs interactions. Love to see it. And then can you talk us a little bit more about like what that workflow is and, what did it used to look like before utilizing AI?
Well, I mean, before Quorum, it was manual. It was Excel sheets. When Quorum had this function, of course, it's manual, right? And sometimes what happens is when you're on the road, it's really difficult. You had 14, 15 meetings at a conference. You're going to go back. You're going back to another conference. And by the time you're done, you're back at your desk, you forgot half of it, unless you took notes to see who you met with. And that happens with me a lot. And, my manager's always on top of me that we got to put the interactions in. Well, I'm trying to use this new feature where you just like pull out your phone and just type in, or you just kind of like dictate in terms of who you met, and it just automatically logs it in. And I think that's an amazing feature for a Quorum.
Awesome.
And by the way, I actually did test something else for those who are Quorum users. If you have a legislation that you wanted to sort of do a blog post for internal purposes, you can just kind of tell Quincy like, hey, this is a bill. Can you create a blog post for internal? What it is, who sponsored it, what it does in what state, and whether it impacts my organization, and it'll create that for you. Well, what I did was I was like, well, these are the sponsors. Have I interacted with them in the past? And it figured out if I had or not, and I did not, which was interesting. And so now you know that for those sponsors, that should be your target at NCSL.
Amazing. That's awesome. You might see me at these events this summer talking into, because we use the interaction logger for just people we talk to. Yep. And at first I felt like, are people going to look at me funny if I like pull up my phone and I'm like, I met with blah, 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 blah. And, or like I'm like yelling at someone on my phone about like my interaction I just had. But I was at a conference recently and I was looking around and so many people were doing the exact same thing. They were like doing quick dictation, because it really is. You're so right. Whenever I go to these events, I think like, oh, I'm totally going to remember all the little things this person said. And then by the end of the day, it's like, I don't even remember their name. I think I know what they looked like, maybe. But yeah, that's great. Justin, how about you? What are some of the other tools you're using? And like, how has AI also shown up in your daily work? Like, what are some examples there?
Yeah, sure. So my stack looks a little bit different from Manny's, which I think is great because we obviously rely on some common tools, but some not so common tools to get our work done, even though we serve in a very similar position. So for me, Claude is my first seat. I use that for drafting, synthesis, thinking through a problem. That is my go-to. I find too that in drafting, I like the Claude features that come along with writing. I think it has some nice perks and some nice advantages there. Another thing that Claude has recently introduced is co-work. And I can talk a little bit about that too, but there are certain integrations with Claude that work, and that you can hand off some of the minutia to Claude. And there might be some questions about that down the road, so I won't get it too far into it. But one thing that is nice is that not only does Claude kind of know me and my profile, which also helps with the writing pieces and things like that, also the analysis, but then also knows me in terms of emails and things like that. What does my workflow look like? It's something that you can train that can then kind of help you out and support you in that way. ChatGPT is my second. So usually for a quick alternate take, specific format, I think ChatGPT, like Manny said, is fantastic for doing those double checks. We always want to make sure that, our job it revolves around trust. So we have to be absolutely accurate. Not only do we have to be fast, but we have to be accurate. And so utilizing ChatGPT to go through in citations, to double check facts. Like I said, it's my second line of defense after using Claude. And I should say this, neither Manny or I are being paid to promote Quorum. Or AI tool here. But obviously we are Quorum users, and that's where Quincy comes in for me. So Quincy earned his place in legislative intelligence. General model can't give me. This is something that ChatGPT can't give me. It's something that Claude can't give me. What I need is a legislator's record, their committees, their bill history. If I can get this before a meeting, fantastic. I have a fast profile on the person that I'm meeting with, which is obviously going to really help in terms of how I structure my talking points, or being able to really make that connection with a person. I know there are some legislators that are even on. So yes, you're in Quorum. Ask Quorum, look up your profile for you. So the other thing too, being on the road, is that is super helpful that I can look into the background on a legislator that, say, I just met at a conference. Obviously, CSG South is the southern region, tons of states here. There's no way I could possibly keep track of everybody. And so it's really helpful, one, if I'm looking for someone that I'd like to speak with, or someone I just met, I can get some background on them and understand how we could connect further and deeper on a piece of policy. And I think that last piece really is that mobile office that Manny was talking about. I do this job from airports. Obviously, I do it from a hotel room. I can walk out of a hearing, or I can walk out of a meeting. I can walk out of just a general conversation, dictate what happened, and then I have a follow-up memo and 3 contact profiles for my next session. So I think what's nice about Quincy and what's nice about AI is that the office is where I am. And that's what makes me able to do my job.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go on, Manny.
No, I was going to say, Justin, you're right. That has changed the game. My first year at Phillips, which was 2021, it was my first NCSL, and I think I scheduled about 40 meetings. That took me forever to do the prep work, and then follow up and everything. You have no idea how different that is now. Just on the go, you see a legislator and they say, yeah, we'll have a chat in 15 minutes. In the next 15 minutes, you have their background, you have, what legislation they run. Well, is the legislation relevant to your organization? I mean, you sound just smart in front of these legislators, right? Which you should. But you don't need to spend extra hours to do that. And I think that's kind of like what we keep going, Justin and I, back and forth, is you don't need to spend time on this sort of admin work, because your expertise is going to come in how to influence that legislator, not to knowing about their background. So yes, game changer and that level.
Amazing. I oftentimes think of Quincy and other tools like this is kind of like, if anybody's seen Veep, Gary, the assistant, where it's like he's like whispering in their ear right before they're about to walk up, be like, them, their daughter goes to Smith, blah blah blah, stuff like that. And so like that's kind of what it does, is you can quickly like, what do I need to know? It knows the context of you, all that kind of fun stuff. So I love that.
If Quincy could give me the name of a legislator's dog or favorite pet, like that would be just like amazing.
Right. Yeah.
That might be in there. I think a lot of those descriptions actually have like what their profession was, what they like to do. So you never know. You just ask.
Yeah, and it's pulling from social media stuff too. So like oftentimes,
Correct.
And especially in state world, they're a little less like guarded on what they're going to post on social media. So they're like, tons of like dog pictures. I'm sure I would actually love to do that. If somebody can do that in Quorum, to see like if you can like pull like, okay, what are legislators' dogs' names? Do that research report. But anyway, so one of the big things we've talked about a good bit is around overcoming hesitation. Sometimes there's real hesitation, and Justin, you alluded to this before, or even like a little bit of shame around leaning on AI at work. There's conversations about job security, blah, 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 blah. What would you say to someone that's still like a little bit on the fence about whether or not, they should really dive in on AI? Justin, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, of course. I totally get the hesitation, like I mentioned earlier. And I think there are 2 separate fears. One, I think, is whether this is cheating, which I alluded to a little bit earlier. And in my world, it isn't. Nobody asked whether you wrote your brief on a typewriter or a laptop. This is just another tool that we're using. And I think the other fear is about job security. And I'd be honest about it. I think the person who loses their seat isn't the one using AI, it's the one who won't. And I say that with the caveat that your work will always be your work as long as you're not strictly just handing it off to AI, not looking at it, not driving it, just going, do my work for me. And that will only get you so far, and will not get you far very well. So I think it's about using the tool responsibly. I think that's something that's very important. But again, when we're talking about job security, we're talking about, is AI going to take my job? AI can't sit across from a legislator and earn their trust. And it can't tell you which fight is worth having this session. It can't do any of that. That's our job. That's the job. I think the draft was never the job, which is what we're using AI to do. So I think start where the stakes are low and the drudgery is really high, like we were talking about. Keep your name on the judgment and use it out loud. I think the shame dissolves the first time it saves you a weekend, honestly. When you realize much more efficient you can be, and really valuing where your time is spent and how it's spent, I think is what's the most important thing. And like I said, you don't have to dive right into AI and say, AI, handle my life. Starting with just small incremental programs can be really helpful. I know for me personally, I started with Grammarly. For those who may have heard of Grammarly. And Grammarly is really kind of like a writing assistant, not so much in the ChatGPT way, but you upload something that you've written and it will go through and edit it for you. So it's like just having an English major sitting right there next to you. And that's where I sort of started to dip my toe in the water, was getting that extra level of support from AI just to make sure my writing was better and to make sure that my messaging was clear, because obviously that's very important for what we do. So Grammarly has certainly evolved and does many other things now, which is very cool. But that's where I started. I didn't just start with ChatGPT. I didn't just start with Claude. I started with something small that I felt was manageable. And that's something that made me feel more comfortable about what I was doing and where AI could fit into my workflow.
Love that. Love that. Also getting some free ads for Grammarly in the chat too. So that's great. Manny, how about you? What advice do you give to folks around, overcoming that hesitation?
I was going to say, Justin, I started with the spell check that's built into the Microsoft back in the days. But no, that, like Justin said, again, it's just, there's no shame. This is a tool. You're using a tool. There's no shame unless you really are not reviewing. I mean, I started my call by saying that once you have the summary, you have to read the summary and to make sure that it's factual and to make sure that there's no errors in there, right? If something pops up that doesn't look right, well, go read the bill, right? And as you should. I think summary is just for you to just kind of quickly understand what you're looking at instead of reading the entire bill. So there's no shame. Again, these are just tools that sort of kind of eases up sort of like your admin work that you're doing and spending hours and hours on it for no reason, and use the expertise where it really matters outside. I don't know, maybe in the future, these tech companies are going to create a robot that can walk the halls, right? And then maybe even have a conversation with the legislator. But I don't know, is the robot going to go have a lunch with the legislators? I doubt it. I think job security wise, I think the job in the government relations, I mean, that's why it says relations, right? So you have to be present. It's the relationship that matters. Everyone in the government affairs knows this, that relationships is what kind of gets you where you need to go. So your job is here. I would say, use these tools responsibly. And what I mean by that is your organizations will have some sort of permissions, restrictions on these tools, which rightfully so. There's a lot of confidential data that flows through. So please check with your organizations to make sure that you are not plugging in information into some of these chatbots that's not supposed to go there. We all have personal AI tools. Try to see if your organization allows you to use the one that's licensed by them. And if they allow you to use a personal one, just make sure that you're not putting confidential information. And my rule is very simple. If I can go on my personal computer and pull up the same website and same information, I can plug that into in any kind of chat GPT or anything like that. If there's some kind of restriction, well, there you go, you can't. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on that.
Totally. Yeah. Now is also a good time to check if you're paying for any of the platforms that you went into settings and said, do not train on my data. in ChatGPT and Claude and all Gemini, all those other tools. Now's a good time to go check. Quorum doesn't, by the way. So, all right.
Well, I mean, I would say if someone's new, like let's just say you have not used it, and I'm sure everyone has. Let's just say you haven't used it, and you download ChatGPT and you sign up. That's the first question you should ask ChatGPT. Okay, well, how does this work? What are some information you're collecting? And it will tell you. I mean, and then just say simplify it for me, and it will do that for you. So I think that's the best way to start.
Yeah, for sure. When you both touched on this, but I just really want to like reinforce this idea that, that your job was never write the brief, like that wasn't the entirety of that might have been what you were spending most of your time on, but it wasn't, like the core reason why folks are hired in government affairs is almost never to like log the thing, right? It's like thinking about like, okay, what is my purpose here? What am I doing? That's the big thing to focus a lot of time and energy on. Now we talked about this a little bit, but I want to know a little bit more about how you're using AI for more like thought leadership. So Justin, we had talked about this previously, but like how are you using AI to get Libertas's work and perspective out into the world faster and to also build that trust as a source that people rely on?
Yeah, of course. And I think, we've all heard thought leadership as a buzzword. It's certainly out there. And thought leadership, it's all about what it means to you and what it means to the organization that you work for. For us, we're encouraged not only just to, do the brief and the draft and everything else, but we also are authors. So we're encouraged to write op-eds. We're encouraged to do a lot with communications. And so, like I said, it goes beyond just that brief. So I think when it comes to thought leadership and building that trust, I think speed and trust pull against each other. And I think that's using AI, I think is kind of how I hold both. I think on speed, when a bill moves, I have a state-specific op-ed drafted the same day. So I can utilize Quincy, I can utilize Quorum to get what I need in terms of that bill draft, that summary, if you will, of what that bill does. And I can take that information and I can plug this into an op-ed or, again, a template, something like that, that'll help me get that work done faster. And so it's interesting. I can even tell you this. I was in Washington, D.C. Not too long ago, and I was actually waiting in line at security to get into the White House for a meeting. And I received a ping on my phone saying, hey, Justin, you probably know this, but we just had a pretty high flying bill move. We want to get something out to local media as quickly as possible. Can you write us an op-ed? I'm literally standing in line at the White House. But being the crazy person I am, I pulled out my computer and I wrote an op-ed in line at the White House. So that is the speed in which you can do this. Now, granted, it was easier for me because in using the AI tools that I utilize, it knows me. So it has my work samples, it has something to pull from. So it is something that, even though I'm not sitting there type, trying to do that with one hand while holding my laptop in line at the White House, it is something that I can pull information in and the AI can help me pull all that information together and come out with a polished product. Now, again, it's not something that I would just be like, here you go, comms team, let's go. It's something that you go through, you read, and again, double check all your facts and your sources. So like I said, it's not a one and done, but it is something that does make something like that, like what I just spoke about, possible. And so I think when you can get things out to an outlet while the vote still matters, like not a week later when no one's reading it or no one's interested in it, that speed is something that's really important. I think we also need to look at the trust situation. And again, that's where I said speed and trust kind of can pull against each other a bit. Trust is the whole asset, and you lose it the first time you're wrong. So the time AI saves me in drafting, I spend on verification. Every bill number, every figure checked against the primary source, because my name is what's going on that op-ed. So not only is it my personal reputation, but also my employer's reputation. So I think being fast and being right at the same time is how you become the person legislators and reporters will call first, which helps you get your name out there and helps you be that thought leader.
Totally. That's a great story. Also, I bet that's the first time you ever were thankful for how slow that line moves. Right.
It was definitely thankful. Like, yes, if you have to stand outside, in the summer in Washington D.C. and do something, at least I could say I was productive with my time.
Exactly. Manny, how about you? How are you using AI to help get help build trust as a source that people rely on?
Yeah, and Justin, I loved your response on that. I'm going to piggyback on some of that. So, as government affairs professionals, especially those who have multiple states, I think you're juggling a lot of priorities. There's a lot going on in a lot of these states. And when we go to these conferences, you meet tons of legislators, right? Your goal is like, how do I build a better relationship? How do I maintain a relationship? So it's not about, in at least my opinion, it's not about just reaching out to them when you need something, right? It's also reaching out to them when we don't need anything, but just saying hi, hello, or informing them about something. So I'm going to give a quick example. And one more time, this is not a promotion of Quorum, but this is a feature in Quorum that I think, and I just recently discovered it, by the way. And this is one of the AI features that Quorum came out with what it's called one of the AI agents. And sorry, Patrick, if I butcher it, you might be able to sort of expand on it. What you do is you basically plug in your organization's press release link into it, and then you sort of kind of ask it to like which recipients you want to send this email to. What it does is every time you have a new press release, it'll create an email for you talking about what feature or what new solutions you're coming out with, and then it automatically sort of like links with, probably uses the keywords that you have put into Quorum about the type of work that you do and how it links to government affairs and what the state can do X, Y, and Z. And it just creates that for you and it'll send it to you. And all you got to do is just send it to a legislator that you think that would be helpful sending it to. Sometimes you talk to a legislator. For example, I talk to a lot of legislators about maternal health. Well, if something happens at Philips on maternal health and solution comes out, something else, I can easily link that. I can easily create that email and send it over. Before, you would figure out the release, read the press release, figure out how it impacts that state, and all that stuff. But now it does it for you. All you got to do is just to plug in the names. So if you have a list of legislators that you interact with on maternal health basis, you just plug that into it, and that's it. You send that email out, and that's it. You're staying in touch with them. You're letting them know what your organization's up to, and I think that's a great feature. And that is kind of where we think at Philips is the maintaining relationship is sometimes more important than anything else. Because eventually when you reach out to them when you need them, they're gonna be hesitant.
Yeah,
we all know that.
Right. Thanks for sharing that, man. Yeah, that's one of my favorite new agents that we released. And we actually have some other fun things coming up at NCSL. We'd love to show y'all when the time comes. But that was one of the big things we kept hearing from folks is that, we are trying to find new ways to make sure we have consistent drumbeats of communication with folks on the Hill. And one of the things is we were brainstorming with customers is like, oh yeah, whenever we have a big press release that comes out, that would be a great thing for us to reach out to about, relevant members. There's a reason why we're putting out a press release about it. So it was a great new tool. So thank you so much, Manny, for sharing that. All right. One last question before we jump into audience Q&A. By the way, you can always ask a question on the right-hand side of your screen, that Q&A tab. And it's a pretty simple one. If someone in the audience is on a small team and they're feeling super stretched thin, I can feel that resonating on the screen already. What is one thing you would tell them to try first? Manny, I'll go to you on this one.
Okay. I would say, I think it's going to start with you. Start with looking at your week-to-week workflow. What do you do every week that's sort of like a repetitive? What is it that you do that happens all the time and you're either doing it every week on every single day, or you're doing it once a week or even once a month, right? Pick that task, pick one of these tools, like it doesn't matter, ChatGPT, Quorum, whatever, plug that into it and just see how that works for you. Because eventually what you'll learn is like how it starts outputting the information that you need. And then you can kind of get a little creative by creating an agent. My manager just recently did that. Basically, he created an agent. What it is basically you just enter in several different prompts into a system, and it just kind of gives you that output. So he wanted to do is every time he goes to a conference, he wants to kind of target the legislators that are relevant to the work that we do. Well, sometimes these, I mean, you'll see the NCSL list. It's going to be, 2,000 legislators. You can't just scan through them. So that agent, what it does is it scans through the entire list and kind of gives you, these are the legislators you should target because these are the type of legislation that they ran. And this is the type of legislation or the type of issues that your company, Philips, cares about. And it just narrows it down. From 2000, you'll start seeing like 40, 50 legislators. And now you can start doing outreach. I think I would suggest that. So just kind of start with one task that you think you do it all the time. We all go to conferences all the time. I think that is one good tool to start, and just try it out and see how that works for you.
I love that. I'd love to see that too, Manny. I'd love to maybe when you see each other at NCSL, I'd love to see what that looks like.
I'll bring Evan over to the booth.
Amazing. Justin, how about you? What is one thing that you would tell people to give a shot?
I have to mirror what Manny said. I think it's taking that first step. Just try one thing. And I really think, like Manny said, take the one thing that you feel like I do this constantly, whether I'm rewriting something or, oh my gosh, if I have to send this email one more time. Think about the thing that you feel like you're always starting from scratch on, but you have to do frequently. I think that's the way to start. And then I would say, pick an agent, and just one, just ChatGPT, and what I would do is I would, kind of feed it that task, tell it what exactly it is that you have to do. If you have to continuously rewrite these emails again and again and again, and you really don't want to start from a blank screen, you can literally cut and paste the text of that email in to ChatGPT and ask it to do something with it. Rewrite it specifically for this state. I need to send this to Idaho. Help me write this for Idaho, and see what that does for you. Again, we always have that check and balance. We always make sure that we're accurate as well as fast. But I think it's taking that deep breath and saying just one thing. And like I said, you still have the final say on it. You're not saying, ChatGPT, here's my email, access my contact list and send it to everybody. Like, good God, we wouldn't want that. So you still you're in the driver's seat. Like I said, it's just about saying, if you want to use the analogy, I'm in the driver's seat, I am driving, I'm also taking a call, and I am also trying to figure out where I'm going. So I'm also navigating. Okay, we've all been there, right?
That's dangerous.
It just says, this is my passenger. Hey, ChatGPT, will you do the navigating for me so I can actually do the driving? And I think that's the way that I would look at it, especially just kind of like dipping your toe in the water. I think the big thing is that there's so much out there. It's what to pick. And the good thing is that a lot of these accounts are free. So like I said, it's not costing you anything to try it out. And it's okay to experiment. I know one thing that I did too is I would take the same task and I would put it into ChatGPT and I would put it into Claude and I'd see who did it better. And so I actually
against each other.
Yeah, I pit them against each other to see kind of what that looks like, and okay, outdo each other, because that made the product the best it could possibly be for me to turn around and use. So that's I think one thing that is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Really quickly, just because Manny talked about his boss creating like an agent. Don't tell my boss I did this. So my boss is really big into a particular author, just a guru, business guru, won't name names, but really into this guy. And so I know that this gentleman's works are very influential on my boss. So I actually built an agent that coaches me like this author would coach my boss. Because when I go in and have conversations with my boss, it's still the content is still whatever it is that we need to speak about, which is authentic to what it is that we do and where we work. But it really does help me communicate best with him because I'm being coached by the same person that's coaching him. So like I said, psychological there, but like I said, I think it does help when it can kind of put you in that seat where you're having prepping for a conversation with someone. What does that look like? And helping understanding how he thinks, which is very different than how I think, really helps me with that communication.
Totally. I love that.
And I would say
one of the things I've heard from
Oh, sorry, Patrick, go
Oh,
ahead.
go on, man. No, yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
No, I was going to say, I think one of the things I want to say is AI is only as good as the input that goes into it, right? And then, of course, that's how it kind of brings out. And I think best practices from your peers is always very, very helpful. A lot of, like, I learned so much from Justin right now. So I think when you're hanging out with each other, it goes back to the question about shame that you did earlier. Don't be worried that they're going to judge you that you use AI. I mean, you're making your work product better. You're not, this is a tool that you're using. And honestly, more often than not, folks usually just come out and before they didn't want to say anything and they'll be like, oh yeah, I use it too. I use it too. And then you start talking about some of the best practices, like, well, this is how I do it. This is how I do it. And I see a question already in the group, and exactly this is how it works. Now you're asking a question to others. I'm going to give my opinion how to do it. Justin's going to give her opinion. And Patrick, you may have one yourself, right? Again, there you go. You have 3 answers and you try to plug in all 3 and see how that works.
Totally. I love that. Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but I get really competitive. And so when I see that somebody else is like better at using like different AI tools than I am, then suddenly it's like, all right, I really got to get in on that. So like that, like cross-functional, like team sharing has been really, really helpful for me. All right, let's go ahead and turn it over to audience Q&A. First question is from Andrew, which is, how do you handle sensitive or proprietary data? What are your overall thoughts on like how you're staying safe with the sensitive and proprietary data?
It's pretty simple with me, and I'm sorry if this is a very simple answer. If it's sensitive proprietary data, we have our licensed product. We have a ChatGPT and Copilot that's licensed by Philips. That is exactly where I use those tools. I don't put these information in my personal tools. And the reason is because a lot of the times our legal team will tell us that the information that you put out there, no matter what these tools will tell you, it could be out there, you could be subpoenaed, and then information they would have to then answer to that subpoena. So for the other organizations, I don't know how you handle it, but I would, again, double check with your organization, check with your HR, your legal team, whoever is responsible for this before you start plugging the information in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the stakes are probably higher for Manny working for the company that he does versus the think tank that I work for. It's not that we don't have important information or proprietary information, but certainly nothing that's registered copyright, that fun stuff, trademarked. So, but again, much like Manny, we do have accounts. Like he has their Philips account, we have a Libertas account, and that's where that information needs to live. Like I said, I would not be taking that information that I felt was guarded or belonged to my employer and put it into my personal accounts. So I think, like Manny said, if it's something that you're looking at or considering, talk to HR, talk to your legal team, talk to the powers that be within your organization to ensure that they understand how AI works, two, and then what does this look like in terms of licensing that your organization may have?
Totally. Only other piece of advice I'd offer is, ask your team, IT, whoever, about like, what does proprietary mean for your data? And so like, for example, like a 1-pager on your policy issues probably is not proprietary, so like that is fine to upload, but data on your customers and stuff like that, yeah, that's pretty different. So, all right, let's jump over to a question from Karen. We have a government affairs volunteer committee. I want to give them a template to use to summarize goals for impact on our profession. What questions should we ask our AI?
Oh boy.
I'll go first. So this is usually how I use this quite often. So this is how I sort of approach it. I would say, I think your organization must have a bio and your mission statement. I think those are the 2 things that you can, which is public information, by the way. You can use that, create a 1-pager, put those 2 on there, and then talk about your goals for your organization's goals, or if you're a nonprofit, priorities for your organization, and plug those in. And I think just those 2 things, I think you'll start seeing some of the results. And obviously, in terms of the prompt, you just basically want to see like, well, I'm looking at legislation HB1. This is our organization's bio, and this is the priorities and our goals. How does this bill impact that? And then it'll start sort of like spitting out some information. And what I recommend doing is continue asking questions. Ask about 4 or 5 more questions. And once you're done with the 5th question, then ask it to create a prompt. Like, hey, based on all this information, create a prompt for me. So next time when I'm going to ask a similar question, what should that prompt be? And then just use that prompt as in everything that you use going forward.
No, that's a really great starting point, Manny, is to, start with your mission and vision statement, start with what your organization is about. That will help start training the AI to understand, what is the baseline? What are we comparing it to? I think too, depending on your position, I know for me, like my AI has my bio. So it knows my background and what my perspectives might be on certain things. It gets to know me as well. So it can compare who I am, what is the job that I do, in addition to where do I work and how do I work there. So I think Manny was spot on in terms of putting that baseline information in that you want your AI to start working from. And the thing too is that, like he said, you can create a prompt with it. In Claude, you can build a skill. So that you can apply that skill to everything that you do, so that you don't have to recreate the wheel or cut and paste or make sure that you add your prompt in. You can build those skills. I think that's really a way to go. One thing too that Manny mentioned was questions. Continue to ask questions. I have AI ask me questions. So I will put my information in, and there are times when I will ask it questions, but there are times too when I said, based on what I've given you, ask me 5 clarifying questions. And AI will produce those questions, and that will help me understand what AI is understanding, or even give me some thoughts about, I hadn't really thought about going that direction. What if I thought about that instead? Or, oh gosh, I forgot to mention that, or I forgot to add that. It'll work as that prompt. So I think that questioning can kind of work both ways. And I think having that interaction and sort of seeing what information you glean from that could, going back to Karen, that could help you build that template. Like I said, just start with the why, which is about your organization, and then start asking those questions. And I think you'll find some great answers there.
That's great.
Quite honestly, Karen, if you can just plug in the same question you asked us in ChatGPT along with the bio mission vision statement, it'll probably tell you what questions to ask. And then there you go. You start asking those questions.
Yeah, who needs us? Just we get them. The only other big thing I would mention, this is something I hear a lot, especially on folks who work with volunteer committees, is to be explicit in like what language to use in summaries. So like there's a solid chance that they're not like a deep policy expert. So one thing I've heard is very helpful is say like, what is the level like reading grade? So like a 7th grade reader would be able to, understand XYZ. So those things are, usually really helpful, like giving a little bit more detail on who's the audience and what they might care about there. Did have a couple of quick ones wanted to run through. I'll take this quick question from Cherie, which is around AI build tracker. I don't think I will attempt to read the whole question. Thank you so much for being so thoughtful in the question here. But so a couple of tips for AI build tracker. First is let the relevance scores do a lot of the sorting. So for every single bill, you'll get a relevance score for you to say like, okay, we think it's like, we're 99% sure this is relevant compared to some that are going to be closer to like 70%, things like that. What's also really, really helpful is then using Quincy on the right-hand side. So you mentioned utilizing different, terms to sort through. But what's oftentimes really helpful is to say, what are some like false positives that you might end up getting based off of this search term, based off of legislation? So it can give you like, okay, you said these are terms that you want to exclude. Here are some other like variations of those terms that you might want to do. And so what's great about utilizing AI is like now Boolean operator creation is way, way easier. So just you can throw that in, use Quincy to help refine what that looks like. Nobody wants to be sorting through 2,000 bills. I can show you that. All right. We have 1 minute left. Woo, time really flew by. So sorry we'll try to make sure we can answer each of the questions that folks threw in the Q&A tab. I just wanted to reiterate that we're so thankful that everyone tuned in today to come see us at NCSL. Alec, I'll be at NACO as well later this week. And thank you so much, Justin and Manny. Our goal today was to give people one idea that they could go and run with. And I think we gave them like 25, 26. So really thankful for both of your expertise, and you're so generous going into the details of what you do. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining. Over on the right-hand side, there's the Docs tab. If you want to speak at Long Week, go ahead and apply there, and also learn more about Quorum State as well. All right, thank you all so much, and looking forward to seeing y'all at all these events.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.